They are two of the most elusive and least studied wildcats in North America. Both are medium-sized, short-tailed, tufted-eared felines that prowl the forests, mountains, and wilderness areas of the continent. Both are solitary, secretive, and rarely seen by the people who share their territory, and both are so frequently confused with one another that wildlife hotlines across North America receive calls every week from people who have spotted one and cannot decide which animal they encountered. The bobcat, the lynx. Two cats that share a common ancestry, similar body plans, and overlapping geographic ranges, yet are separated by differences in size, physical adaptation, habitat preference, and prey specialization that reflect two distinct evolutionary strategies for surviving the wild landscapes of North America. One of them is the most abundant and widely distributed wildcat in North America, found from the forests of Canada to the deserts of Mexico, thriving in environments from suburban edges to remote wilderness. The other is a specialist of the deep northern forest, an animal so precisely adapted to one specific prey, one specific habitat, and one specific set of environmental conditions that its entire population rises and falls in almost perfect synchrony with the population cycle of a single species of prey. Today, WildForge explores every dimension that separates these two fascinating cats: their evolutionary origins, their physical differences, their habitats, their hunting strategies, and their very different relationships with the changing landscapes of North America. Both the bobcat and the Canada lynx belong to the genus Lynx, a small but fascinating genus of medium-sized wild cats found across the northern hemisphere. The genus Lynx contains 4 species in total: the Canada lynx, the bobcat, the Eurasian lynx, the largest of the 4, and the Iberian lynx of Spain and Portugal, which is one of the most endangered wildcats on Earth, with a population that dropped below 100 individuals in the early 2000s before an intensive conservation program began to reverse its decline. The Canada lynx, Lynx canadensis, is the species most people picture when they hear the word lynx in a North American context. It is found primarily across Canada and Alaska, with populations extending south into the northern United States in states with suitable boreal forest habitat, particularly Minnesota, Montana, Idaho, Washington, and the mountainous regions of the Northeast. The Canada lynx is considered a threatened species under the United States Endangered Species Act, reflecting the limited and fragmented nature of its range within the lower 48 states. The bobcat, Lynx rufus, is the most common wildcat in North America by a wide margin. Its range extends from southern Canada through the entire contiguous United States and into central Mexico, a geographic distribution that encompasses an astonishing variety of habitats and demonstrates a degree of ecological flexibility that no other North American wildcat can match. The bobcat is not listed as threatened or endangered at the federal level in the United States, and while some regional populations face localized pressure, the species as a whole is considered secure. The evolutionary relationship between the bobcat and the Canada lynx is close. Genetic studies suggest they diverged from a common ancestor approximately 1.5 to 2 million years ago, with the ancestral lynx lineage entering North America from Eurasia via the Bering Land Bridge. This relatively recent common ancestry explains the many physical similarities between the two species, while also revealing the significant adaptations each has developed in response to its specific ecological niche. This is where the confusion between bobcats and Canada lynx most clearly dissolves, because once you know the key physical differences, these two cats are unmistakably distinguishable in the field, even at a distance. The Canada lynx is the larger of the two species, though the size difference is more modest than many people expect. Adult male Canada lynx typically weigh between 8 and 14 kilograms, with females somewhat lighter at 5 to 10 kilograms. the Canada lynx's most immediately distinctive features are adaptations to life in deep snow. Its feet are enormous relative to body size, proportionally the largest paws of any wildcat relative to body weight, and are densely furred on the undersurface, functioning like natural snowshoes that distribute the cat's weight across a large surface area and allow it to move across deep snow with a speed and efficiency that its prey and most of its competitors cannot match. The Canada lynx's legs are noticeably long relative to body size, further enhancing its ability to move through deep snow. The ears are tall and conspicuous, topped with long black tufts that extend significantly above the ear tip, considerably longer than the bobcat's ear tufts, and the facial ruff of fur surrounding the face is more pronounced, giving the Canada lynx a distinctly larger-headed appearance. The tail is uniformly black-tipped, entirely black at the end, contrasting with the bobcat's tail, which is black on the upper surface of the tip but white on the underside. The coat of the Canada lynx is typically a uniform grayish-brown or buff color in winter, often appearing paler and more washed out than the bobcat's more richly patterned coat. The Canada lynx's winter coat is extraordinarily dense and long, one of the thickest pelages of any North American mammal, providing insulation against the brutal temperatures of the boreal winter. The bobcat is a somewhat smaller and more compactly built animal than the Canada lynx. Adult male bobcats typically weigh between 6 and 14 kilograms, with females between 4 and 8 kilograms, a size range that overlaps with the Canada lynx, but with average weight somewhat lower. The bobcat's most immediately identifiable features are its coat pattern, a rich brown to reddish-brown background covered in distinctive dark spots and streaks, giving it a much more heavily marked appearance than the relatively plain Canada lynx. This spotted pattern provides superb camouflage in the dappled light of the diverse habitats the bobcat occupies. The bobcat's feet are considerably smaller relative to body size than the Canada lynx's, a functional difference that reflects the bobcat's use of environments where deep snow is uncommon or temporary. The ear tufts are present but shorter and less prominent than the Canada lynx's. The facial ruff is less pronounced, and critically, the tail of the bobcat, from which it takes its common name, bob, being an Old English term for something cut short or cropped, shows the characteristic pattern of black bars or streaks on the upper surface with a white underside to the tip, whereas the Canada lynx's tail is entirely black at the end with no white on the underside. The habitat preferences of the bobcat and the Canada lynx reflect their fundamentally different ecological strategies and physical adaptations, and nowhere is this contrast more striking than in their relationship with snow. The Canada lynx is, above all else, an animal of the deep boreal forest, the vast belt of spruce, fir, and pine forest that stretches across Canada from coast to coast and extends south into the northern United States. Within this habitat, the Canada lynx is most closely associated with areas of dense coniferous forest with significant snowfall, thick undergrowth that provides cover for hunting, and, most critically, abundant populations of the snowshoe hare, upon which the Canada lynx depends so completely that the relationship between predator and prey has become one of the most studied and most famous ecological cycles in all of biology. The Canada lynx's range is essentially defined by the combined distribution of boreal forest and snowshoe hare populations. Where the boreal forest ends, the Canada lynx population thins. Where snowshoe hares are absent or scarce, Canada lynx are almost never found in significant numbers. This tight ecological coupling means that the Canada lynx is far less adaptable to habitat change than the bobcat, a specialization that provides extraordinary efficiency in the right conditions, but leaves the species vulnerable to any disruption of its primary prey or primary habitat. The bobcat's habitat range is the most diverse of any wildcat in North America. It occupies coniferous forest, deciduous forest, swampland, semi-desert, scrubland, chaparral, agricultural land, and the edges of suburban and even urban areas. The bobcat tolerates moderate snow conditions, but is generally absent from areas with consistently deep snow, the northern boreal forest where Canada lynx thrive, because its smaller feet cannot support it efficiently in deep powder. This geographic boundary between the two species, roughly following the southern limit of reliable deep snow, is one of the clearest and most ecologically meaningful range boundaries of any pair of related species in North America. The bobcat's tolerance of human-modified landscapes has allowed it to persist and even expand into areas from which other large predators have long since disappeared. Bobcats have been documented living within the limits of several major American cities, hunting rabbits and rodents in suburban parks and agricultural edges. This ecological flexibility is one of the primary reasons the bobcat remains abundant, while many other North American predators have suffered dramatic range contractions. This is the section that most clearly reveals the profound difference between the ecological strategies of the bobcat and the Canada lynx, and it centers on one of the most dramatic ecological phenomena in North America. The bobcat is a generalist predator. It takes an enormous variety of prey species depending on availability and season: rabbits, hares, squirrels, mice, rats, birds, deer, and in some areas even livestock and domestic animals. This dietary flexibility is central to the bobcat's success across its diverse range. When rabbit populations decline in one area, bobcats shift to rodents. When rodents are scarce, they take more birds. When snow drives deer to concentrate in valleys, bobcats may take deer considerably larger than themselves, using their powerful forelegs and sharp retractile claws to subdue large prey with a throat or neck bite. The bobcat's hunting technique is a patient stalking ambush. It uses available cover to approach prey to within a short distance before launching an explosive pounce, covering several meters in a single bound. The Canada lynx is a dietary specialist to a degree almost unmatched among North American predators. Across most of its range, the snowshoe hare constitutes between 75 and 97% of its diet, a level of prey specialization that makes the Canada lynx almost entirely dependent on the fate of a single prey species. The Canada lynx is superbly adapted for hunting snowshoe hares in deep snow. Its enormous padded feet give it a critical advantage over the hare in soft powder conditions, allowing it to run across the snow surface that the hare sinks into, and it hunts primarily by active pursuit and pounce rather than long stalking. The consequence of this specialization is one of the most famous ecological cycles in science. Snowshoe hare populations in the boreal forest undergo dramatic boom and bust cycles, with a periodicity of approximately 8 to 11 years, peaking at densities of several hundred animals per square kilometer and then crashing to near zero. Canada lynx populations track this cycle with remarkable precision, lagging roughly 1 to 2 years behind the hare cycle as lynx populations build up during hare abundance and then crash as hares disappear. At the peak of the cycle, Canada lynx may catch a hare every 1 to 2 days. At the trough, starving lynx may travel hundreds of kilometers from their normal territories in desperate search of alternative prey, and kitten survival rates drop to nearly zero. The bobcat, by contrast, shows no equivalent population cycle because its dietary generalism buffers it against the collapse of any single prey species. Both the bobcat and the Canada lynx are solitary, territorial cats that share many behavioral similarities, but they differ in ways that reflect their different ecological contexts. Both species are primarily nocturnal and crepuscular, most active at dawn dusk, and through the night, though they will hunt during daylight hours when conditions demand it. Territory is marked with scent using urine, feces, and scratch marks on trees and logs, with both species defending their ranges against members of the same sex while allowing some overlap with the opposite sex during the breeding season. The Canada lynx has a more fluid territorial system than many other solitary cats, particularly during the low phase of the snowshoe hare cycle, when animals range far beyond their normal territories and territorial boundaries may become less clearly defined. During the hare crash, Canada lynx from across a large area may converge on the same few remaining pockets of hare abundance, creating unusual aggregations of normally solitary animals. The bobcat maintains more stable territorial boundaries across a wider range of prey conditions. Male bobcat home ranges typically vary from 12 to 80 square kilometers, with females maintaining smaller ranges of 5 to 25 square kilometers. Territory size tends to expand in areas where prey is scarce and contract where prey is abundant. Both species communicate through a variety of vocalizations: screams, yowls, hisses, and in the breeding season, loud caterwauling calls that carry through the night forest. Both species breed in late winter or early spring, typically February to April, with litters of 1 to 4 kittens born approximately 60 to 70 days later. Both mothers raise their kittens alone, with young remaining with the mother for their first 9 to 12 months before dispersing to establish their own territories. The conservation situations of the bobcat and the Canada lynx reflect their very different ecological strategies and their very different relationships with human-modified landscapes. The Canada lynx is listed as threatened under the United States Endangered Species Act, a status that reflects the fragmented and limited nature of its population in the contiguous United States, which exists as isolated pockets in northern states far south of the main Canadian population. These southern populations are vulnerable to habitat loss from logging, road development, and recreational pressure in the mountain forests they inhabit, and to the effects of climate change, which is reducing snowpack depth and duration across much of the species' southern range, eroding the deep snow advantage that the lynx's enormous feet provide, and potentially allowing bobcats to extend their range northward into areas previously dominated by lynx. Climate change represents a particularly significant long-term threat to the Canada lynx, not because of temperature alone, but because of its interaction with the deep snow advantage that defines the lynx's competitive edge over both its prey and competing predators. As winters become shorter and snowpack shallower, the lynx loses the advantage its snowshoe feet provide, and competitors like the bobcat and the coyote may be able to follow prey populations northward into formerly lynx-dominated territory. The bobcat's conservation situation is broadly positive. The species is abundant, widespread, and showing range expansion in several areas. However, bobcats face localized pressures from trapping. Significant numbers are harvested annually for the fur trade, from vehicle collisions in areas where roads fragment habitat, and from rodenticide poisoning through secondary exposure in suburban areas where pest control affects rodent populations that bobcats hunt. So, what is the real difference between a bobcat and a Canada lynx? At the most visible level, the Canada lynx's uniformly black tail tip versus the bobcat's black and white tail, the lynx's enormous snowshoe feet versus the bobcat's smaller paws, and the lynx's paler, more uniform coat versus the bobcat's rich spotted pattern. At the ecological level, the bobcat is the ultimate North American generalist, a cat that can live almost anywhere, eat almost anything, and adapt to almost any disruption. The Canada lynx is the ultimate specialist, a cat so precisely tuned to one habitat, one prey, and one set of winter conditions that it rides the boom and bust cycles of the snowshoe hare like no other predator on Earth. At the conservation level, The bobcat is thriving and expanding while the Canada lynx faces an uncertain future in a warming world where the deep snow that defines its competitive advantage is becoming increasingly rare. And at the deepest level, both cats remind us that evolution does not produce a single solution to the challenge of survival. It produces many solutions, each precisely fitted to its context, each capable of extraordinary success within its niche, and each vulnerable in its own specific way to the changes that no evolutionary process can fully anticipate. Thank you for watching.